The officer walks up fast, one hand on his belt, the other pointing directly at the camera. Turn that off right now. You're standing on a public sidewalk outside a government building. You're not blocking traffic, you're not touching anyone, you're simply recording. Then the officer steps closer. I said, "Stop filming me." People nearby start staring. Another patrol car pulls up. Suddenly, what started as a simple First Amendment audit becomes tense in seconds. So what do? Can police legally order you to stop recording in public? Do you have to identify yourself? What happens if they say you're being detained? And what words should you use to protect yourself without escalating the situation? Because in encounters like this, one bad sentence can completely change the outcome. One insult, one aggressive movement, one emotional reaction. That is sometimes all it takes for a simple interaction to turn into obstruction charges, disorderly conduct accusations, or even an arrest. And that's exactly why understanding your rights matters before the encounter happens. In this video, we're going to break down what officers are usually looking for during a First Amendment audit, the mistakes people make that hurt them, the exact phrases that help protect your rights, and how to stay calm even when the officer loses control on camera. First, understand the most important thing about these encounters. The camera changes everything. The officer knows they're being recorded. The citizen knows they're being recorded. And emotions rise quickly because both sides know the footage may end up online or in court later. That pressure causes people to make terrible decisions. One of the biggest mistakes viewers make during audits is confusing rights with immunity. Yes, in many situations, recording police in public is protected by the First Amendment, especially when you are in a place you are lawfully allowed to be and you are not interfering with police duties. But that does not mean the officer has to like it, and it definitely does not mean you should try to provoke a confrontation. A lot of people think the goal is to win against the officer on the sidewalk. That mindset creates problems. The safest approach is calm, controlled, and boring. Not emotional, not sarcastic, not aggressive. Listen to the difference. Bad response. I know my rights. You cops always violate the Constitution. Better response. Officer, I'm exercising my right to record in public. I'm not interfering. That second statement matters because it stays focused on behavior, not emotion. Now let's talk about the first major trap during an audit: identification. During many First Amendment audits, officers immediately ask, "What's your name? Let me see your ID. What are you doing here?" A lot of people either panic and overshare or instantly become hostile. Both can hurt you. Whether you must identify yourself depends heavily on state law and the specific circumstances. Some states have stop and identify laws that may require identification during a lawful detention. Other situations may not. That's why the smartest response is calm clarification. You can say, "Officer, am I free to go or am I being detained?" That phrase is powerful for a reason. It forces legal clarity. If the officer says you are free to go, the encounter is technically voluntary. That means you may often walk away or remain silent. If the officer says you are detained, then the legal situation changes and the officer may need reasonable suspicion depending on the circumstances. Notice what this phrase does not do. It does not insult the officer. It does not resist. It does not escalate. It simply asks for clarification. Now here's another major mistake people make during audits: talking too much. This destroys people every day. The moment someone feels nervous, they start explaining everything. "I'm a constitutional activist. I saw this on YouTube. I'm not one of those troublemakers. I know the law better than you." None of that helps. In fact, the more you talk, the more opportunities you create for misunderstandings, contradictions, or statements that can later be used against you. Remember this: police are trained to gather information. Even casual conversation can become evidence later. That's why short responses are usually safer. If questioning becomes aggressive, you can calmly say, "I exercise my right to remain silent." Simple, clear, respectful. And if things escalate further, another critical phrase is, "I want to speak to a lawyer." That sentence matters because once legal counsel is requested, legal rules may change depending on the situation. But here's something important. Do not combine silence with argument. Some people say they're remaining silent while continuing to debate the officer for 10 straight minutes. That defeats the purpose. Now let's address one of the most misunderstood parts of First Amendment audits: physical compliance. You can verbally refuse consent while still physically complying with lawful commands. That distinction is critical. For example, if officers attempt to handcuff someone during a detention, physically fighting usually makes a situation dramatically worse. Instead, you may hear experienced rights educators recommend this phrase: "I am not resisting, but I do not consent." That sentence does two things at once. First, it shows nonviolent compliance. Second, it preserves your objection to the officer's actions. That can matter later if the legality of the detention or search is challenged in court. But understand this clearly: the roadside is not the courtroom. Trying to physically win against police during an encounter is extremely dangerous. Even if the officer is wrong, escalation can put everyone at risk. Another common mistake during audits is consent searches. An officer may casually ask, "You mind if I check your bag? Mind if I take a look?" If you've got nothing to hide, why not cooperate? A lot of innocent people say yes because they feel pressured. That is exactly why officers ask. Consent removes legal barriers. If you do not want to search, the safest response is calm and direct. "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Notice the wording: not aggressive, not emotional, not insulting, just clear. And here's the important legal distinction: refusing consent is not the same as resisting. You can refuse permission while staying calm and nonviolent. That matters. Now let's talk about another huge mistake people make on camera: fast movements. During tense police encounters, sudden reaching, stepping forward aggressively, or refusing clear safety instructions can instantly raise danger levels. Even if your intentions are harmless, officers may interpret sudden movements as threats. That's why calm body language matters. Keep your hands visible when possible. Avoid pacing towards officers. Avoid pointing fingers in their faces. Avoid crowding them physically. Remember, your goal is not to perform for the internet. Your goal is to leave safely while protecting your rights. And one more thing viewers need to understand: not every officer response during an audit is automatically illegal. Context matters. Location matters. Distance matters. Interference matters. State laws matter. Security zones matter. Recording inside a publicly accessible area is different from entering restricted property or interfering with active police operations. That's why blanket legal claims online can be dangerous. This video is educational information, not personal legal advice, and laws can vary significantly depending on the jurisdiction and facts involved. The smartest mindset is preparation, not confrontation. Know the framework. Calm down, do not argue, do not physically resist, do not consent unnecessarily. Ask whether you are detained. Use your right to remain silent when needed. Request a lawyer if questioning becomes serious. Because the people who usually protect themselves best during police encounters are not the loudest people, they are the calmest ones. And in many cases, the camera captures something important: not who shouted the most, not who sounded the toughest, but who stayed controlled under pressure. If you want to understand another situation that catches drivers off guard, watch the next video on what happens when an officer says, "Step out of the vehicle," and whether refusing that command can legally be led to arrest.